I love seeing him on In Living Color and sometimes seeing him on Saturday Night Live. Also enjoyed him in Django. And there's this new movie called Project Power on Netflix that I wanted to check out as well. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that movie out as well. Okay. It's at this point I realize, oh, I left like a pixel of space, like a row in between, and it's not that much space. So I'm just filling in, putting them next to each other, and then adding some dark spots here and there, just kind of give it that that illusion. And here with the 50% opacity on the pencil tool, I'm adding like some pixels next to it, just so I can like make them look a little more um, not so symmetrical. I'm trying to get them to look like actual spikes pointing. And at this point, I'm doing like the leg bandolier. It like holds bullets. He has like 3 or 4 around that belt on his thigh. And I noticed that there's like a little edge, a little outline of gray in the reference photo. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of shading it, trying to make it look like leather. Here I go, adding some darkness, just kind of testing the colors. And then in the reference photo, depending on like the angle you're on, you can only see like one of the little magazine bags. So he has 3, but in this photo I only see 1, and I thought it would be easier if I just did the 1. So I'm just adding the highlights, just kind of really trying to make it pop out. Like a very shiny leather magazine bag. And I was pretty satisfied with it, so I'm moving on to the belt. There's like chains with spikes on it. I'm starting with the skull insignia that he has on his belt. Very demon-like, very badass, gothic looking accessories on him. You could even say that it was like medieval or like definitely demonic, like, you know, just reminds you of death. He's like the harbinger of death. But I love the Spawn character because he's like an anti-hero. He kind of reminds me of like Punisher in a way. Like he means well, he has good intentions, and he's trying to protect like the sanctity of life and like certain people, but he does it like he plays by his own rules, you know, like pulling like this very die-hard, like I don't care what happens to me, like I'm gonna wreak havoc on the demons of hell. And Malbolgia. Also, I also really liked Clown. I know a lot of people hate Clown, but I think that's like the point. You're supposed to not like Clown. He's supposed to be like super reprehensible and even cringy. And the actor who played him, John Leguizamo, he was also very good in the Pest movie and as Sid the Sloth in Ice Age. I remember his voice was pretty appropriate for that role. Give this video a thumbs up if you hate the Ice Age baby as much as I do. Yeah, I know it's kind of a dead meme, but it's still pretty funny to me. Also, I just deleted a pixel that I noticed, kind of one of my pet peeves when I see one floating out there. I tend to like stop what I'm doing and just kind of clean it up. So at this point, I'm trying to like mimic the look of like the spiked chains. So I'm doing some adjustments, some fine tuning, just to kind of get like the levels correct. You know, like I didn't want the chains to be too close to each other. One kind of arcs upward and the bottom chain arcs downward. So I'm really doing my best to kind of like add shadows in the right spots, kind of make the the spikes a little different, so that they kind of contrast against the chains well. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I noticed the chains aren't grayscale. They have like a little yellow tint to it. Later on in the video, you'll see me make that adjustment. But for now, I'm just working with grayscale just so it's simpler. Oh, now this is the best part. This is what you came here to see. So, you notice that it's like pretty flat, the suit at this point. This is where I work my magic and add like the highlights and the lowlights, adding shadows and the black as well. You're gonna see a lot of contrast come alive in the suit. I'm adding like bicep muscles, the deltoids, I'm adding the neck, the traps, the pectorals, and then the abdominals will come after. Then I'm also getting like the little rib bone that comes out kind of on the side. He is wearing like a skin tight suit, and Al Simmons was like a ex-marine or like mercenary, so he was pretty cut and in good shape before he died. So it only makes sense that you have to give him like a not like a bodybuilder, but like very strong, very athletic build. And let me know if you guys want to see like any other guest characters in the future. I was definitely gonna do all the Mortal Kombat guest characters. Like I'm gonna do Leatherface, Jason, Alien, Predator. May do Freddy Krueger and maybe Joker. It just depends. There are a lot of Joker sprites out there, so I probably won't do him. Batman as well. I probably won't do Batman either. Even though they had a Mortal Kombat versus DC video game. I'm not really gonna do any like DC characters. I'm gonna focus more on like the Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat X kind of characters. So as you can see here, I'm almost finished adding the highlights, and now I'm gonna start working my ways to like the shadows here. So I have all these shadows slowly fleshing out the details, like the veins, and like kind of separating the muscle groups with some defining lines. And it's very rough at this point. I'm gonna make a lot of adjustments. I'm gonna blur it. I'm gonna add some. I'm gonna change the levels of contrast, and then like recolor the suit so it's all uniform, so it doesn't look like purple and black and white in some spots. Like it's gonna look completely uniform at the end. So right now it's still kind of cartoony. It's still in like the prototype phase. I'm still trying to get it on the and I set it to 69 exposure. I guess I was feeling pretty funny there. So we got some adjustments to make, and at some point I realized, oh shit, I made it too dark in some areas and there's no color anymore. It's like completely black, and then if I try to like brighten it, it's gonna make it look gray, like light gray. It's not gonna look like this dark purple that Spawn suit has. Because if you notice, there's like a tint. It's not like perfectly grayscale. And at some point in the video, you will see it become grayscale due to the colorize tool on Photopea. Basically, when you colorize something, it turns completely grayscale, and then you add like the pigment or the tint that you want, and it kind of helps make everything uniform. So I'm really happy with this program because I can separate the layers, and that's very useful. It's great at saving time and managing elements of the sprite that you're working on. And with these sprites, I plan to make comics, like 4-panel, 6-panel comics with it. Sometimes they'll be funny, sometimes they'll be more action based. So you guys want, visit MortalKombatOnline.com, Or shout out to the Combat Pavilion, one of my favorite websites. I have several comics I made when I was a kid. I was around 13 or 14 in 2006, and I was making several comics, you know, like fan-made stuff. And looking back at it, some of it was like pretty cringy and underdeveloped, and I was like really full of myself, trying to get my foot in the door, talking on chat rooms with these like clearly like grown men. Like they're like, hey dude, like there's some spelling errors here, and like, oh, this joke isn't that funny, like that's kind of immature. And you know, I think they kind of caught on that I was in like the younger crowd, but nevertheless, you know, it was fun and it was great for expressing my artistic sensibilities. And so yeah, I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to read some of those comics. I mean, they're not great, but the new ones for sure I will definitely share. And so back to the topic at hand. It's at this point I'm looking at the levels, the contrast, and I'm like, something is off here. It's not satisfying me. So I'm like trying to do touch-ups here and there. I noticed that there's a lot of really dark zones that shouldn't be that dark, and if like there is gonna be black on the costume, I only want it to be like a line, like a pixel length and width. So I'm doing my best to kind of like touch it up. I'm using the pencil tool mostly at this point, just because I don't want to do the colorized tool again. I'm making some adjustments to the biceps. I'm adding here and there. And this is extremely useful. I know it looks like I'm just haphazardly adding them in random spots, but that does help me get like the desired effect, because Spawn has like a ripply like texture to his suit. It's not like totally smooth. It's very rigid, and it has like, it's almost like asphalt. It's not like totally flat. There's some like bumps and indentations here and there, and so like that's what I'm trying to mimic and replicate here. I'm really like taking my time with the shading and like just really doing my due diligence, trying to get it correct, working on the crotch and the calf and the pecs and the shoulders and the abs and like the neck area, and also the face, the head area as well. So this is where the suit is black and white. I'm adjusting the chain belt, and this is the point where I'm looking at it, the sprite, and I'm saying to myself, huh, like I'm almost there. There's just some like minor tweaks, certain spots that could use some adjustment. Like I noticed in Spawn's mask in Mortal Kombat 11, like he has like this victory animation where he rips his skin off, like his Letha suit, and like it shows that he has like no nose. It's like a skull nose, and I really thought that was badass. So that's what I'm trying to go for here. I'm trying to like give the indentation, like the whole silhouette of it. Right now I'm working on the body symbol. I did like a very special layer channel. Instead of using normal, I went down to vivid light or color dodge, and it looked a little too pink for my liking. So I'm like tweaking the sliders, just trying to get it correct. Now I'm looking at the suit, I'm like, oh, it's a little brighter than that. So I'm gonna desaturate it with the sponge tool. I'm very satisfied with the face symbol and the torso symbol at this point. So I'm just gonna work on the eyes, start getting the other details going, like the cape. I was also thinking about making like a gun or like a glowing effect on his hand, because you know Spawn is able to cast spells and use magic, but he also uses guns because magic is more limited, so he has to use like conventional ballistic weapons and swords and axes and stuff like that. So yeah, the Spawn's badass. Like, he's the best of both. He's like kind of modern, but he's also like fantasy and like gothic at the same time. It's really cool to see like him. So now I'm adding like his cape, which kind of reminds me of like Doctor Strange. It's like Doctor Strange and Venom put together here. So I'm adding like this big doo-doo looking shape, and I'm realizing like, oh, like some of the cape is in the front, and you know, like I'll do two separate layers where there's one in the front, one in the back. So I'm just erasing like the stuff that kind of overlaps, because I'm trying to like have that illusion that it's in the front, like it's like around him, like he's wearing the cape, obviously. So I'm just looking at the reference photo here and there just to kind of make sure I get like the folds and like the shape and the size of the shoulder on the cape correctly. Doing my best to kind of show like the neck area and the shoulder area that I work so hard on, but at the same time, you know, you have to get the aesthetic as accurate as possible. So I'm just kind of filling it in bit by bit, just kind of changing the shape here and there, just kind of adding some pixels, erasing some, just to kind of make sure I get like the right shape. And then once I'm satisfied with the shape of it, then I'll stop and I'll start adding the highlights and the shadows again. Okay, so here I'm adding the shadows first. Normally I would add the highlights first, just so that it doesn't look a certain way. Like if you darken a shadow highlight, it'll look more gray. But for the cape, you know, like I'm only adding lines here and there, so I'm not like completely shading it. So for that particular element, it didn't matter which I did first. Now I'm adding the little skulls on his cape. I noticed that Spawn has like two big skull, like I guess like ornaments or like jewelry. So I'm doing my best to make make it seem like a skull with the eye and the nose. They're like jawless skulls. So I'm like looking at the reference, just kind of making sure that the placement's correct. That was my first attempt at the chain. I said no, it's not like perfectly symmetrical. Some of it's hanging. So I'm doing my best to kind of like imitate that look. Usually I like have to do an element like 3 or 4 times before I get the desired effect. So at this point I'm satisfied with it. It looks like the middle center part of the chain is hanging down, and then it's still connecting to the skulls. So I'm pretty satisfied with the front of the cape at this point. And once I do all the final touches, then I'm going to start working on the back of the cape. So if you noticed, I'm only having the front layer on for now. Then I'm going to add the back layer in a moment. Yeah, honestly, like this sprite is probably like the longest that I've taken. This one took like 2 hours and like 30 minutes, so it was almost like 3 hours, honestly. Okay, so here I'm adding color to the belt and the cape chain, like I mentioned. I'm doing some final some touches on the skull ornament, just to kind of make it look more like a skull, but not too dark, because it seemed like it had too much contrast. Oh yeah, now I'm fixing up the chest symbol, trying my best to not make it, you know, white. I'm like doing like an off-white, very light gray. And at this point, I'm pretty satisfied with it. I'm making some final adjustments to the face before I start working on the cape. I noticed that like Spawn has like a gaunt eye, like very skull-like head. You know, no ears, no lips, no nose under the mask. He's completely burnt, seared. So I'm using the paint bucket tool, just kind of like messing around, adding some like points and just trying to make it look more organic, more realistic. It's not so rigid and so square. It's like a very torn, tattered cape. So I'm doing my best to kind of like copy the reference photo, but I'm also taking some liberty to kind of like fill it in properly. Yeah, I cannot stress how much I love this program, just because you can hide layers and like adjust certain elements and like position them the way you want them to. So I'm looking at the cape, I'm like, oh well, it looks fine in some areas, but some areas do not look that good. It's like definitely gonna get some more adjustments later. I'm just going in with the highlight tool, and since it's behind him, I'm not doing like my best job at keeping it like concealed or perfect, because most of it's going to be hidden behind him anyway. So you'll see me adding like this extra outline, because the cape in the reference has like a line on the edge of it, giving it like that worn look. So I'm pretty satisfied with the cape, but I'm gonna like change the shape of it, because I noticed that like the rips or the wisps, they kind of have like they're too stringy to me. They're more like they're more wide than they are tall. I'm looking at the reference photo and I'm realizing, oh geez, I kind of messed up like the shape, changing like the settings, kind of trying to get the shape correct. So I'm gonna do some more erasing and just kind of get that shape properly cut out. So now I'm feeling very pleased with like the aesthetic of the cape, and that is the final product. I'm going to show what it looks like against a green backdrop. And so there you go, you guys. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for more videos. Have a nice day.